Welcome back. As you know, I'm Eli, the computer guy, here for the Daily Blob to remind you, once you say it is ever moral or ethical to use a pickle, do not be surprised when a pickle is used against you. I do fear my viewers don't quite understand how things are supposed to work. When I talked about the distributed denial of pickle attack against Louis Rossmann, you were supposed to send the pickles to Louis Rossmann, not to me. See, this is what happens, right? You sit there and you condone pickles to be used in any fashion. And then all of a sudden, you, my friend, you get hit with the pickle. So this is a weird metaphor. This is an adorable metaphor to getting shot in the neck. But it is true, right? Years ago, I moved here to Asheville. I got into this whole thing about using pickles. I came up with this whole concept of trying to destroy Louis Rossmann's business, literally with using a distributed denial of pickle attack. What happens if you sent so many pickles to Rossmann Repair Group that they literally could not do business anymore? What happens if you sent so many pickles that the pickles would literally cover up the door and then he would go bankrupt and go out of business? And I talked about that for a little while. Again, the whole idea about things like scale and distribution of attacks and all of that kind of stuff. Sadly, my viewers, I've stated in the past, my viewers might not be the smartest critters in the world. And so instead of sending pickles to Louis, I, in fact, got hit with the pickles. Anywho, how are you all doing today? I have another pickle. I've got another pickle. Oh, we're about to be in a new age. We're about to be in a new age of Eli, the computer guy. Going to Durham, North Carolina today. A couple hours. Going to be going to American Underground to verify that I can use the classrooms there for Silicon Dojo classes. And within the next couple of weeks, we're going to start having free to the end user, open for anybody. Technology education there. We're going to have classes on AI and SQL and all kinds of cool stuff. So anyways, that is where my future is going. Hopefully, I'll be screaming a little bit less into a camera about pickles and actually talking a little bit more about things like latency and SQL statements and all that kind of stuff. I want to talk about this today just for a second. Eli, what's your opinion on Charlie Kirk? I don't know. Seemed like a jackass. Seemed like a jackass to me. But I think this is more interesting. This whole thing where people are losing their jobs because of what they're saying about Charlie Kirk. Several people, at this point it's been far more than several people, fired after clampdown on speech over Charlie Kirk shooting. So this is coming from The Guardian. And what's curious about this is I actually look into these subjects. And most of the time, at the end of the day, I hate everybody. Just to be clear, I would pickle everybody if I could. Anyways, I hate them all, right? And I think this is kind of curious to be looking at, especially if you're a business leader or a manager or that type of thing. The whole idea of where is the line between free speech and consequences. And this is something that came up for me when I was thinking about Silicon Dojo back in the day. So Silicon Dojo, to be clear, we are probably going to end up buzzing the treetops for the entire eternity that Silicon Dojo exists. This is my kind of half-assed little brain fart of a project. I'm content with that now, and so that's what we're going to do. I'm going to make people's lives better. I'm going to help them improve their lives or whatever, and I might not lose money in the process. But anyways, back in the day, I was thinking about this with Silicon Dojo, and I thought Silicon Dojo could actually be real and significant, right? When I moved to Asheville, North Carolina, back when houses could still be purchased for about $100,000 a piece, the whole 9 yards, the idea is, hey, what if I hire people and they come in? Because I can attract high quality talent. It's amazing. I'm like the Pied Piper of geeks for some weird ass reason. And so the idea was, what if I could pay these people like $40,000 a year, but in a place where a house costs $100,000, just to be clear. So you can rent a full-fledged house or buy a full-fledged house off of the salary. You can be walking distance to South Slope where all the breweries and all that kind of stuff are. And you can come into Silicon Dojo and you can literally change people's lives. Right? I know so many people in the technology world right now, they make a shit ton of money. They have no purpose. They have no idea what their work actually does. Right? And so that's the thing, right? Yeah, you're not gonna make a lot of money. Again, it's probably not gonna be a long time thing. You're gonna come in for a year, 2 years, 3 years. But look, you can own a house, you can be walking distance to the breweries and be able to afford beer and all that on your salary, and you can change people's lives every single day. Right? But one of the questions that comes up is I surround myself with characters, right? Characters welcome, as USA Network used to say. Because that's when you're educating people. One of the things you need with education is characters, right? There's the good ones and the mean ones and all those kind of, right? But here's one of the questions. What happens if I have students that come in and they're taking classes from somebody, and everybody like the teacher is doing a good job. The teacher is doing a good job in class, right? They're teaching the students the whole 9 yards. But then that teacher goes home and they go to LinkedIn or they go to Facebook or whatever else, where they've linked to students because students want to connect with their teachers or whatever, and then they just start saying things like these people don't have a right to exist. And in 2025, that's a hell of a blank. Like 10 years ago, if you said these people don't have a right to exist, you probably know who I was talking about. Like, oh, that's kind of mean, Eli. Simply by saying blank. Saying blank actually filled in the word. It's 2025. Everybody hates everybody anymore. You have no idea what would be filled in with that blank. These people or those people or the other people, right? And then imagine that. Imagine if you have students. Imagine you have students that are connected to Silicon Dojo, doing all this education, and then they see that their teacher hates them or hates their family or hates the place that they came from or whatever else. Oy vey. Oy vey would be the response, right? And it's an interesting question. Like, do you as an employee have the right to feel certain people shouldn't exist? I mean, sadly, yes. But where does the freedom of thought and freedom of speech and freedom of publication come in? I think that's an interesting thing to be thinking about when we talk about freedom of speech. Freedom of speech used to be, I go to the bar and talk to my friend and vent about whatever I'm venting about. All right, if you were in USSR or whatever, there would literally be spies to listen in on what you were saying to try to drag you to prison. All right, they would use your own family members to rat you out, to drag you to prison. So in the United States, freedom of speech is you can go to the bar, you can go to your family, and you can say whatever the god-awful shit you want to say is. All right, and you shouldn't be fired for that. But here's the interesting thing. When you go to Facebook, when you go to YouTube, when you go to Twitter, when you go to LinkedIn, right, these are publishing platforms. It's not simply that you're saying it, you are publishing it to the world, which is an additional action. And then when you have these companies, what happens when your employees are publishing to the world exactly how they feel about a lot of things. And what's interesting about Charlie Kirk, what's fascinating about this whole Charlie Kirk thing, is how nasty the right side of history is. Like, because that was the thing. My wife came up to me. My wife came up to me a couple of days ago, and she's like, Eli, who's Charlie Kirk? And I looked at her. I said, dear, that's why I love you. You have no idea any of this crap, which means you're living your life well. Anyways, and I was like, well, I can go into this. But before I do, why? And she said because people on her Facebook feed were being incredibly nasty about the death of Charlie Kirk. So she was just trying to figure out why the hell they were being so vitriolic. And what's the curious thing here, again, with so many people on the right side of history, is they're coming out and holy shit. So what you hear from the mainstream media is employees are being silenced. Employees are being fired for their social media posts about Charlie Kirk. And look, I believe in the Constitution. I believe in the First Amendment. I do at this point question whether the Second Amendment defends the First Amendment. You know those MAGA people out there? The Second Amendment, make sure I have the First Amendment. Charlie Kirk might disagree with that at this moment in time. But anyways, right? The curious thing is, like, you see all this stuff from mainstream media and all that. And for me, like, I believe in the Constitution. I believe in the First Amendment, right? I got my criminal justice degree, and we got banged into our heads why these constitutional rights are important for a stable society, right? And so I really believe in that kind of thing. And so you see this, and like, oh my God, that's horrible. But then you start actually looking at the posts. And then you actually start thinking, wait a minute, these posts are linked back to these people who are linked back to their employers. And many of these people hold positions of authority, right? They are teachers. They are, one was a fucking Secret Service agent, right? They are police people. They are fire people. And so they're going out. They are going out into the world and saying this type of person should die. Because Charlie Kirk was politically assassinated. That is just what the fuck it is. Whether you like Kirk, whether you hate Kirk, whatever else, it was a political assassination. So you're having literal government employees go out and celebrate political assassination on a globally accessible platform. Lordy, what the hell is going on in this world? And I think that's like the wackadoodle thing that is currently occurring with all of this. And my warning to you, as somebody that's trying to allow you to get jobs and keep jobs, is maybe don't celebrate political assassination on your social media feeds. Because the issue is, it really does become a real and actual problem for the companies and for the organizations, right? If you're disparaging a set of people because of whatever, then there is a real question about how you're going to be dealing with those types of people when they actually interact with the business. And then the question is what is the liability for the business if they allow you to interact with those types of people, right? Let's just go back to the old school racism. Back when racism was pure, when it was white people being mean to black people. How grandpa did racism, right? Think about it, right? If you have an employee coming out being a grand poobah of the KKK and saying that basically all black people should be used as mats or whatever else, or fertilizer, imagine they're putting that out and published on a globally accessible platform. And then imagine that KKK member is, part of Delta or United or Target. And they know this is what this person is espousing on a distributed platform. And then you have people that come in. You have people that come in to seek service from your company or organization, and then they either reel or feel that they have been discriminated against. How is that going to look in a fucking court of law? Mr. CEO, did you know that this employee, day after day, was disparaging the black people? Yes. Do you know how many of your customers are of this particular persuasion? I think it's like 40%. So you knew that your employee was most likely going to disparage 40% of your clientele simply because of their race or ethnicity. Right? That is not a position any of these executives want to get into, right? Remember, the purity of the CEO is they really want their yacht. They really fucking want their yacht. When their company gets sued for discrimination, that puts their yacht just a little bit farther away. They don't want their yacht to be farther away. They want their yacht to be closer. So it makes sense that these people would be terminated. And so I think this is a curious thing to be thinking about with what you're putting out there. Again, we talk about like freedom of speech, but this is freedom of publication, This is what you're screaming, going down to the town square and screaming at the top of your lungs. This is what you're writing in the newspaper. This is the book that you're writing or whatever else to be distributed to everybody who's willing to read it. And the question then becomes, is what position are you putting your company in when you do this? Right? There's a difference between arguing gun rights. Right? There's a difference between saying if Charlie Kirk's shooter had to go through a 20-year waiting process, he wouldn't have had that gun. Right? That's a way of saying things versus how a lot of people are saying things. I will not repeat them because I would not like my YouTube channel canceled at this point in time. And I think that's kind of one of those things to consider. And also think about the anger and the vitriol that you're putting into the world. And again, especially on these social media platforms, right? Everybody you know is reading this type of thing. And one of the things to consider is not everybody agrees with you, right? I think that was one of the fascinating things with the first Trump administration is how many people supported Trump but didn't want to say so, right? The reason mainstream media and the authority figures keep getting surprised, keep getting shocked that Trump keeps getting elected is because the people that are willing to vote for Trump know if they say they're going to vote for Trump, they're going to get shit on. So you know you're going to get shit on for just simply saying who you're going to vote for. You're probably not going to say it, right? And so you're going to be quiet. And so one of the things to think about is in your feed, how many family members in your feed, how many peers at work in your feed, how many other people in your feed are essentially lurkers on political topics. Right? They feel a certain way about political topics, but they're not going to bring it up because they're going to get crapped on if they do. And think about it. They're consuming what you're putting out. And is that getting you down the path you want to go? I don't know. Some things to ponder. Some things to think about in the world of post Charlie Kirk. I do have to say, I mean, I've seen the video clips. I've literally seen the video clips where he says, like, the cost of the freedom of the Second Amendment is that some people are going to die. So anyways, I don't know. It's a weird thing. We murder 22,000 of each other every year. If you look at it, the U.S. murder stats, 22,000 Americans were murdered in 2023. If you ask yourself, how many murders are too many in the United States? Apparently the answer is 22,001. In the United States, if we murder less than 22,000 people in a year, that's the cost of freedom. And if you murder 22,001 people, all hell is gonna break loose. It is also one of those weird things. But anyways, I don't know, something to ponder. But do remember, my friends, when you say it's moral and ethical to use a pickle on anybody, do not be surprised when the pickle is used on you. What are your thoughts? Down below. Give us a thumbs up if you like these videos. Give us a thumbs down if you hate these videos. Give us a good comment. Give us a horrible comment. Just give us a comment like a real alpha dog would. I am going to Durham, North Carolina today to look at the classroom facilities at a place called American Underground. Hopefully we are going to start doing classes there in the next couple of weeks. And again, this is actually doing something. You can scream, you can whine, you can bitch, you can moan, you can blow your big ass snot bubbles and suck on either your blue hair dye or your red hair dye till the end of the day. One of the questions is what are you doing? What are you doing to try to build the world that you envision? I don't know. I want to teach people. I want to teach people technology. We'll see how that goes. So anyways, Durham, North Carolina. I will be there today, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. SiliconDojo.com will be back from the hiatus. And hopefully, my real hope, my honest hope, is that at some point I get so busy doing the real work, I don't have time to make metaphors about pickles anymore. Anyways, silicondojo.com. See y'all later.